I'd like to call this meeting of the Festus City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Councilman Boyer,
Here.
Councilman Collier, Councilman Templeton,
Here.
Councilman Weiner,
Here.
Councilman Dennis,
Here.
Councilman Benz,
Here.
Councilman Cook,
Here.
Councilman Tennant.
We do have a quorum. Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Play ball.
This afternoon, we have a bid coming up from Ice Pigging Edgewood Lane for ice pigging of Edgewood Lane. Could I have a staff report, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. For your consideration today, I'm requesting a not to exceed $20,000 allowance to do something new we haven't done before, and that's ice pigging. So that's the insertion of ice chips, about 2 miles worth of ice chips into the lines on the attached diagram. And in fact, we're going to do a little bit more than what's just on the attached diagram, since you pay for the amount of ice that's on the truck, whether you use it all or not. So we're going to use every bit of it. So price doesn't change. So that $16,000 figure should be our price, will be our price. But I'd like to try that to knock the sediment that I shared with you guys out of the lines. Hopefully buy us a little bit of time so we can have Burns and McDonald engineering firm spend some time in the area, examine on a very close level what's going on, why we're having these continuing pervasive issues with water quality, and really dig down into the issue. But today, step one is the ice pigging. Hopefully give those people some relief, get the stuff out that's in their lines right now. My staff and I believe that we have a water turnover problem. The water's getting into that area, not turning over quick enough. And so it's staying in the lines too long, and that's why it's gaining the color that of the stuff that's in the line. That's our theory. The engineering firm will be the one that will determine whether or not that's correct or not, and what the proper course of action is. But regardless of step two, step one is knock the stuff out of lines, get it loosened up, get it moved out so that it's not there causing those water quality issues, at least for a period of time, enough time for us to, again, have a permanent solution. So this firm is doing work right now in O'Fallon. My staff went out there yesterday and took a look at them doing some live work. They'll be back next month to do some work in O'Fallon. That's partially why this price is so cheap, is because they're just at one of our neighbors doing some work. They're scheduled there the first week in January. They believe that they'll be here, would be available here the week of the 8th. So in advance of that, once we have that date nailed down, my office will type up a letter. We'll put that letter in an envelope and we'll tape it to everybody's front doors. We'll put it on social media. We'll do everything we can to make sure folks in the area understand during the time that this work is taking place, they will not have water service. This should take about 6 hours from start to finish, barring any major problems before their water is restored. For that inconvenience, I'm happy to talk about a water credit or something like that on their bill at one time, whatever you guys want to do. But our recommendation is to again engage this firm, do the ice pigging, and then we'll be back to you in the next, hopefully by the next meeting, and have the again step two, that engineering engagement letter for the deep dive, figuring out what in the world is going on there. I'm happy to take questions.
How does that work, man? I mean, like, if you start. All right, if you start, let's say from here, you start here, say. You just blast from here and it will go all the way to here, or do you gotta, because you gotta keep going?
They close the valves and it just keeps pushing through hydraulic pressure. They don't use, any kind of chemical. It's just water, ice. But yeah, they have
so it's gonna make it from there all the way to there.
Yep, they just
vice versa.
They have to close the valves, but yes, it'll go the way that the valves are open.
But even though there's no water to people's homes, or you're gonna shut the water,
right,
they still have. When they first start using it, it's gonna come out, I guess, bad once we put
It'll-
water back in?
It'll come out the end. So at the process at the end, there's a place where all that blows out, and they'll have a roll off container to take it. It won't be just left to go off in the streams or the street or whatever. It is collected.
Well, I mean, when people first start turning the water back on, will they have
In your house?
in their houses? Yeah, will come in there through their pipes, I guess.
You know, it should, you know, I believe the process is they turn off everybody all the way up and down the street. So there shouldn't be any,
Oh, they're shutting their valves in the yards.
right. There
Oh,
shouldn't be
okay.
any chance that they have any of that.
Oh,
Now, yeah, it's going to dislodge some things, and they may have some discolored water for a day or two.
Damn, that's a long way
But I
to,
think they're suffering from discolored water now.
that's a long way to do that.
But hopefully, yes, it is. Again, it's about 4,500 feet.
Isn't it kind of like sandblasting, but ice blasting? Is that what's more?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's a good way of putting it. But it's inside, you know, obviously inside the pipe.
Manufacturing plants. I've done a lot of research on this, and actually Crystal City had this done 15 years ago with their water plant. So, couple of questions on it, and some things I really want to recommend. So if we're turning the water off, we're going to coordinate the fire department, correct? Common sense. Number two is if we have a bad pipe, we're going to find out as well, because that pressure is going to blow that pipe.
Yep.
So be prepared.
Yep.
Okay. And that's my two questions. The third is I'm asking, I'm venting a little bit because I need to, because I think a lot of us are really tired of getting chewed on for this, rightfully so. I'm politely requesting for you, Shane, Josh, and Zach and Greg, sit down and let's get some project management under control. Josh laid about 4,000 feet of main 5-6 years ago. I went back and looked through all my notes, got it done in 60 days. He's a great source. I've talked to water districts from here all the way to Jackson, Missouri, Jackson County. Our 7 water district has lines in the 1940s, and they're not having the problems we're having. I feel like we're doing circles. What if I want to call somebody in? It's time. I want to go out for bid. I want a professional in here. I want all they want. I don't want an engineer that designs bridges. I want somebody that deals in water systems. Please, I'm begging you.
Mike, let me just
'Cause
address that.
I
I know
need-
you're frustrated.
I need to talk a
I
little
think,
more about
I think, to be honest with you,
I'm aggravated.
I'm up there with you. And unfortunately, we have residents that are probably higher than that on the aggravation chain. Here's what we're proposing to do. Obviously, the iron oxide in the line is there because of extended use of our ground wells. Even though we've gone back over to JCWA and we're there continuously, as we should have been all along, we're there now, and it's not making the problem go away. So in order to get that iron oxide flush from the lines, we need to take extraordinary action. I think that's what this is. Beyond that, though, because we know this isn't a permanent solution. Burns and Mac is already doing work for us. Matt and I got a chance to take a look at what they have so far on the water master plan. They've identified some pressure zones on Orchard and St. Mary's that could be amplifying the problems we're having on Edgewood and Cypress because of valving and pressures in that area. Because of their knowledge of our system and the short time they've been working for us, we'd like for them to engineer essentially a replacement of these lines. And once that's done, for you to consider it, for obviously the entire council to consider it, and then let's get out under contract with somebody to come in here and do it right away. I think being able to try to push this down the road, as I think it has been done in the past, it's not a solution anymore. We need to address it. We need to address it now. I think the ice pigging is helpful, but I think we all know what the fix is. The fix is the lines need to come out of the ground, and the best way to do that is to get it engineered and get a contractor and get it done.
And I accept that because PVC doesn't corrode. But to add to my point, we're laying water mains on another street that we overlaid 4 years ago. That we're cutting new streets. That's my point. This is
I hear
where
what you're
all
saying.
my frustration is boiling over now, and I've really tried to tame it down. we're not communicating. And I swear to you, I know other councilmen feel this way. Jump in if I'm wrong, correct me. I'm begging you guys, please. We have got to get better at communicating. I cannot believe we're cutting a new road up that's 3 or 4 years old to put water mains in. We just got to communicate. I'm begging you, please. That's all I'm asking for consideration. I'm just one person. The rest of the council agrees. Speak up now, because
I agree.
I'm
We
tired
shouldn't
of
be cutting
getting
up
chewed
roads.
on.
I agree. And once again, we try to stay out of day-to-day operations, but seems like everywhere I go, there's a cut up street, there's a hole, there's a this, there's a that, and I was under the impression that we had laid some significant amount of pipe over there. But once again, like I said, I don't do this every day, and trying to keep up and remember what we said a month ago, but I mean, I thought we were well on the way to fixing this, that we had put some new pipe in, we identified a problem, water was circling around something, and next to, I mean, this is the number one thing, this and traffic. That's number two things I hear about all the time. And this is every day. I mean, you turn on the faucet and there's brown water. So with the engineers, they're going to engineer possibly the replacement of this whole section of pipe. Is that what you're saying, or tell us where to fix it? Or should we just start
the
fixing it?
information, the information we get out of the water master plan, which some of which we've already gotten. Obviously, we expect Burns and Mac to make a full presentation to the mayor and council, because I think it's important information for you and the public to know. Secondly, is for them to give us specific information, basically engineered drawings is what we need to, it's the same thing we have out here on West Main. We need the same drawings that we're using to replace water main on West Main to be able to address replacing the mains on Edgewood. For whatever reason, we have pipes that are older than this in town, and they don't give us the problems that Edgewood does. So we're at the point now where those lines need to come
It's
out.
the-
They need to be
Yeah,
replaced,
the Bermuda Triangle of water lines. here.
apparently, for whatever reason.
Right.
And it needs to be addressed. So step one, again, is the ice pigging, and I'll spend as much time talking about this as we need to. But at the same time, know that it's a multi-step process. We've known it all along.
Right.
The things we needed to do, we've tried flushing, we've tried system-wide flush. We've tried, obviously, working with Burns and Mac as they were working on the water master plan. They've identified some things already. But I think we need to take it a step further. And be able to say that we're tackling this in every direction that we possibly can with as many resources as we can bring to bear.
But we are consistently on plant water now for.
Yes,
So
Yeah.
that's kind of tells us that's not all the problem.
correct.
I think that one of the issues, there's two comments to what he had just said. Edgewood is where we're seeing this now. This is not just there.
No,
I can tell you that personally. Because I live not too terribly far from there, and I have a water purifier, and I can see the pink coming off onto my shower curtain. So I know where that's coming from. So I think to focus only on this one area right now, yes, absolutely we have to, but this is not an isolated situation. This is the flare. It's like a chronic illness at this point. Tearing up the roads, we just put these in, now we're going to have to go back and do something. Well, that seems like comes back to kind of project management. Why wasn't that taken care of? But we can't go back and do it. It's done. We have to move forward. My other thing is sorry, because I just want to get this out there, but the sense of brevity. I don't think that letters on the door are enough.
Okay.
I don't think Facebook is enough. I don't think social media is enough. I think you need to offer a town hall. Uncomfortable as it may be, you need to at least offer people, hey, we're going to have a community meeting on X day at 6 p.m. And we invite you to come in and be there and be open to say, hey, this is all of the things that we have tried. Because everybody, by the time so-and-so that does not have Facebook, does not understand more of what's going on, and they have been circled around for weeks and weeks by everybody else in the subdivision or in the neighborhood. It's a game of phone. What you said to him is not what you heard, not what you heard, and it just takes on a life of its own. I think we got to own it at this stage. You're gonna listen to the good, the bad, the ugly, and you're gonna go forth and say, these are the things that we are doing. These are the things we're preparing to do. These are the resources that we're bringing in. This is an issue. We understand that. And we're gonna go at it. I just think we have to open up to that point.
I think, and this is just my thought. And so we're having a conversation about this. When the first phase of that water master plan is prepared, I think that would be a perfect time for a town hall.
I think it has to be now.
If
These people are angry.
I understand they're angry, I guess what I'm saying is to not have a plan other than to say, we're going to do ice pigging and we're going to wait for engineering to come back. I think that's just poking the hornet's nest.
Potentially, but I think you're saying that we are bringing in specialists.
Mhm.
We are bringing in a specialist. If you went to the doctor with a broken arm and he said, you know what, I think this is what we'll do. That's one response. But if he says to you, you know what, you need to go see XYZ orthopedic specialist, because that is what they do. We need to find out a long-term solution to this issue. And I get waiting, but my
Just
concern
to
is
give more
that-
information.
Right. But I think you can relay that to people to say, this is not just an open and closed issue. There are multiple parts to this. My concern is just that we're just letting it spin instead of saying, sometimes being told, I don't know, but I've brought in somebody who does know. I don't know. Is that an opportunity? I know you risk, poking the bear.
The bear's already been poked.
Exactly. And that was my point of,
But
having people come in and just being open to.
Whatever the mayor and council wants.
I think add on to what Stacy said, people just want an answer and it might not be the one they want to hear. But the only thing about town hall meetings, you're going to open it up to everything that people ever didn't like and don't like. So will we have an agenda, or would you be allowed, or are you going to
think
have
we could-
every department head come in?
No, I think specific to
water
this,
meeting?
what we're talking about is addressing all of the residents, but specifically those in the Edgewood neighborhood. For
And
them to
limited.
come in and look at the data that we have, ask the questions that they want to ask, and leave it at that. We could have certainly myself, Matt, Zach,
Maybe the Burns and Mac people.
have the Burns and McDonald people on hand, and go from there.
Back to Yarrow competition. Open it up. Let's get our employees involved. They're our biggest assets.
But I think you have to bring in the specialist that we're going to spend money to.
Okay.
But I think you bring in the wealth of knowledge that we do have. I don't disagree with that at all, but even though you're gonna probably get people that are just flat out upset, we know that. I think you acknowledge it. Listen, we understand that this is a quality of life issue that you have been dealing with on a daily basis. It is not that we don't understand. It's just that there's not an instant fix. It didn't happen overnight. It's taken years and years for it to get to this point. And the things that we have tried, A, B, C, and D, have been temporary fixes. Now we need to do something that's going to be have more longevity to it. My personal opinion, I would feel better if somebody said, listen, we understand, or we can empathize, or we hear you. Don't even say you understand. I hear you. This is where we are. I'd at least feel like, you know what? Okay. They at least had an open forum for me to come in and listen to it. If people don't show up, it's kind of like not voting. Well, don't complain. So if you have the opportunity to be there, you have the opportunity.
So
If I could just interject for just a second, I totally agree with you, Stacy. I'm a little on the fence about an open meeting or not for people coming in. I understand what you're saying. Greg, when you started here, one of the things that I was harping about so much was communications. And Friday night, every Friday now, we get an update. We know what's going on. I was communicating with a lady on Edgewood the other day, and told them to go over to Public Works and get some water, because they're getting this stuff that looks horrible. This is red. They're supposed to be drinking this, but the stuff they were getting was just nasty looking. But as Councilman Cook said, it's about communication. It's about people not knowing. We can do all this stuff. We can invite them in, and the people that know that we're inviting them in will come in and they'll have their say. But not enough people know what is going on,
Put it on the letter.
not what's going on. And we can't just put a piece of paper on their door 2 days before it, and maybe we've got water at Public Works and maybe we don't. I mean, we've got to be more open about this. We know we've got a problem. We know that there are solutions for this, but people have to know what they are.
Okay, is there any
Hey,
other discussion?
So this icing that we want to do, this is just a temporary, and then we're gonna eventually tear all these pipes out and put new pipes is what the goal is.
I think ideally what we would like to have happen is to have an action plan, the water master plan.
Right.
The roadmap, which is what we've talked about all along, for all of us to follow. It's clear that the Edgewood neighborhood is dealing with extraordinary circumstances now, and we need to take extraordinary steps. So if that means additional engineering cost, if that means additional contractor cost, then yeah, that's what we're talking about. Exactly.
So that would be the first.
And I don't want to belabor this because I know we came here today to talk about something else. But obviously we're wanting to do, we need to do something.
Yeah.
Zach, who, I think has done a dynamite job as our water sewer foreman, has found something that he's witnessed himself. He's researched, gone and seen and brought back information for us to hopefully take action on here today so that we can get this company in here to help us with this problem.
Quick question.
Real quick question for you.
Go ahead.
So let's go back about, I don't even know, 6-8 years ago when we had pinholes in the copper. I don't know that ever got resolved, but this is just my opinion. My theory was we were on the wells then as well for a longer period than normal. And I really have to believe that we were getting a silica sand slurry that was being pumped through the pipes. And basically it goes back to what I was just talking about sandblasting. I was told that it was the copper pipes, but I was the guy who was replacing these copper pipes in new houses. And you can't have 5 different brands of copper failing. You might have 1, but not 5. And so anyhow, it kind of seems to me like when we, again, we've been on the wells for a lot longer than necessary. And if you got that slurry going through there again, it's not damaging the new houses because we've all gone to plastic. But it's just like a sandblast effect. It's opening those pipes up and cleaning them out. And I really believe that's what's causing it is because if it's getting that silicon sand slurry, you know what I'm talking about? You can't even see it. It's just like it's just a fine sandblast going through. And that's what would be probably eating the rust out of those pipes. But that's just my opinion. But maybe we should kind of base it back to what was the problem, 8 years ago or whenever it was, because we never really got to the bottom of it. It just kind of fixed itself. To my knowledge, it did anyhow, because I think there were so many new pipes or older houses being upgraded to PEX plastic piping too. So,
Hey, Greg, I apologize. I thought the master plan was done. I even relayed that to people, and like Dennis, I thought we were already laying some mains. Do you know when we'll have the master water plan?
So we were able to review a draft yesterday. It's how I was able to make those references to St. Mary's and Orchard. So a bulk of the field testing has been completed. As far as having something that is ready to be laid in front of you, we would hope in no later than February. As we're asking them for some additional work here, pinpointing this area, that may add to the time it takes for the full plan to come together, but that's okay. If the whole plan isn't ready to go, obviously we want to make sure we have data to help this neighborhood as soon as possible.
Yeah, the part of the second phase is the CIP, which is the most important. It's the part 2, so it tells us the roadmap of what we fix, just like what we have. We in my tenure, we finished the first 20-year transportation, road overlay plan, right? We have our second 20-year plan that we just began here 2 years ago. We don't have one of those like plans for water. So this gives us that plan, or at the end of phase 2 will give us that plan. So my staff can budget for these improvements every year. No more guessing which water lines to replace under the ground because these break more than those, or these are of this age or this vintage. We'll know, and we'll be able to show you guys what we're going to do year over year to replace and refurbish these water lines throughout town.
Yeah.
It's going to be a huge
think-
benefit.
I'd like to see a map throughout the city where we have reported brown water. So, this seems like be the worst, but other places, so everybody feels like we're working on it. And I think with all departments, identify the problem, department head, show us what we're doing, people, this is what we're going to do. But I know there's other areas in town that have some water, but if Matt could just a brief map say, okay, maybe on Vine or Edgewood or whatever it is, these seem to be the spots that we're, and then as we work through the issues that they don't feel like they're left out too. So, but yeah, I mean, that's all you can do is identify the problem and make a plan and go to fixing it.
That's right.
So no matter what it would be, so.
Is there any other discussion?
Okay, it sounds like when we go to well water, it seems to be the problem, okay? Is there anything that once we turn on the well water, is there anything that we could put in to where it
No.
would go through something before
No.
it or not? I didn't know there's some kind of filter.
I remember what Matt Clemens used to tell me when he was Public Works Director. We had about 4 days between coming off the plant, going on wells, and getting back on the plant water again. Anything past 4 days, because of the composition of the water, the source of the water, the method in which the water is treated, caused especially areas like Edgewood to react. That was just something that it's the nature of the source of the water.
Okay.
Where we're pulling the water from is a ground well. Obviously, where the plant's coming from is a collector well that's under the influence of the Mississippi River. The size and scale of the plant is an indication of the level of treatment that water receives. It goes through the Clare cone, it goes through a softening process, it goes through a disinfection process. We don't have anything of that scale. The water's safe, the water's disinfected, but the chemical composition of the water from its source and how it's treated is completely different.
So there's no way to do anything.
We could not, short of having a smaller version
Yeah.
of the Kathy Joker's treatment plant at both well 8 and well 10, we wouldn't be able to mimic the water composition. I mean, at its source, it's still different, but we wouldn't be able to mimic the water so that we wouldn't have these problems.
Okay.
What we're hoping to do, I know JCWA's intent is to rehabilitate collector well 1, and therefore when collector well 2 has to go down from maintenance, collector well 1 can be used and the cities don't have to use their ground wells. The only time that would become a factor is if the plant has to go down for maintenance. And I know that's something that JCWA takes very seriously and hopes to be able to address in the future. It won't be addressed within the next year, but it is something that can be addressed in the not too distant future.
But Rick, what I was saying a while ago though, and Mike, I didn't mean to discount. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to discount anything about the people. I'm just trying to figure out something that could be a problem. And the other thing is, it's just like Greg is saying, I truly believe that being back on the treatment plant, the water will start clearing up anyhow, because it's the quality is way better than the wells. And it doesn't have that silica sand in there. And it's like, what I see as a problem is you got water lines all over town that are put in the 40s, 30s, whenever. And just because they're getting a brunt over there at Edgewood doesn't mean that the people on the other side of town won't have brown water, because it's.
We used to tear roads up. I talked to Mike Chance. They used to replace them. Every time they would do an overlay, that section of town, believe it or not, they would rip it up. I called Matt Clemens to verify. He said that's true.
But
That's kind of a water plan already. If you want the truth, just use your road plan.
Right.
If you got a bad section over here, go 3 years ahead and there you go.
And Mike, I'm not questioning that, because I think something's been lacked for sure. but the thing of it is that's not solving our problem right now. Looking back, why didn't we do it? Is we gotta move, we gotta be proactive and it's, you know, instead of, overlays and all that stuff, we need to be pulling sections out that's gonna get overlaid. Yeah, I agree with that.
Well,
But to get a bunch of people in here and say, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. You know, I'm on the other end where I get people screaming at me because they had pinholes and stuff. And I couldn't answer the questions. And so it's like, here we are now with dirty water and we can't answer the questions because we don't really know. But as soon as we got back on the treatment plant, the pinholes went away. Everything started getting better, no complaints. So I don't think I'm not sitting here saying that we should wait 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever and see how the water comes out, but it's definitely going to improve for sure. So I don't know, we could definitely have engineers on call or staff, but I definitely agree with you, Mike. I mean, if we're going to overlay a friggin' street that's got sewer pipes and stuff in it that's 100 years old, it's time to replace them. So otherwise, we're gonna have to be doing it all at one time anyhow.
well, because of this conversation, we're gonna do those things. So we need to move on to the next thing, but first, I'll entertain a motion to approve the bid from American Pipeline Solutions of $20,000 for icing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Councilman Boyer,
Yes.
Councilman Templeton,
Yes.
Councilman Weiner,
Yes.
Councilman Dennis,
Yes.
Councilman Benz,
Yes.
Councilman Cook,
Yes.
Councilman Tennant.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all.
I will need a motion to go into closed session for RSMO 610.021 legal, 2 for leasing, purchase and sale of real estate, and 12 documents related to a negotiated contract.
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Councilman Tennant, Councilman Cook,
Yes.
Councilman Benz, Councilman Dennis,
Yes.
Councilman Templeton,
Yes.
Councilman Weiner,
Yes.
Councilman Boyer.
Yes.
Motion passes. We're in closed session.